You see the position that I'm in. I can't tell you why you're here, but at the same time, I need to rule you out into something. Does that make sense?
In a world where justice is supposed to prevail, some moments shatter the very foundations of our belief in law enforcement. Imagine being a cop sworn to protect and serve, only to discover that you are the one who will spend the rest of your life behind bars. This gripping tale delves into the extraordinary journey of a police officer who confronts the devastating truth. He is about to face a lifetime sentence. Join us as we unravel the layers of this shocking revelation that what happened when a cop realizes he's going to jail for life. This is a story about a man named Grant Hardin. He is 50 years old and works as a police officer. However, he has a very scary secret. Grant has been caught by the police because they suspect he committed a murder. During his interrogation, they discovered that his crimes and behavior were extremely terrible. He did everything he could to try and escape from the police. Now, let's talk about what happened on February 23rd. A man named James Appleton parked his car in a parking lot on Ganridge Road to have a phone conversation with his brother-in-law. Suddenly, there was a loud banging noise heard over the phone, and the call ended abruptly. A person passing by noticed a white Chevrolet Malibu parked behind James's car. It quickly drove away after the loud noise. When the passerby went to check on James, they found him dead in the driver's seat. He had been shot in the head. The town where this happened is called Gateway, and it's a small place with only 400 people. The police soon figured out that the owner of the white Chevy was Grant Hardin, who had lived in the town his whole life. Later that night, Grant's vehicle was stopped at a police roadblock while he was returning from a dinner outing with his family. He was taken in for questioning.
Detective Chamberlain, I know we haven't met. James Chamberlain.
Okay, yeah.
I know, did you used to be a police officer somewhere? Or, I recognized you, but I wasn't 100% sure where I knew you from. But somebody said that you used to be a police officer at Gateway or something like that.
The detective, Chamberlain, starts questioning Grant in a relaxed way. Since they are both police officers, Chamberlain thinks they can find common ground and build trust. He hopes this will make Grant more comfortable and willing to share information. However, this approach backfires. Grant, realizing his rights have been read, decides to make things difficult for the detectives from this point forward.
I want to talk to you about what you've done today, okay? Can you just take me through when you woke up this morning to when you got stopped by the police out there in, what's the name of that road that you're on? I'm sorry, I'm going to drop again, Ridge?
I'm not going to say anything after I've been read those rights yet.
Until now, Grant hasn't been told why he was asked to come here. He says he feels sick because of the situation he's been put in. His body language suggests that he may also feel vulnerable and not as important because he's being treated as a suspect in a case instead of being the detective, which is something new for him.
So you don't want to explain what you've done today? Did you? Is there a reason behind that?
What was the first thing said? I have the right to remain silent.
Okay. So you're telling me that you don't want to talk to me right now? Okay, cool. Hang tight right here for just a few minutes, okay?
This break allows them to plan their strategy, but it also makes the suspects anxious and concerned about what might be happening. When the detectives come back into the room, they try a very different way of doing things. This time, they try to make Grant feel more comfortable by telling him that they just want to make sure he didn't do anything wrong. They assure him that once they're done, he can leave without any trouble. Most people would feel a bit more willing to share information to leave quickly. However, Grant has different plans and doesn't want to cooperate. Unfortunately, Grant is using a smart tactic during the questioning by refusing to speak. This greatly obstructs the investigation and prevents the detectives from making progress. Surprisingly, Grant's actions are legal, which is why Detective Chamberlain is visibly annoyed and decides to take a break from the interrogation. The interview has come to a complete stop, and no progress is being made in any direction. Grant, the suspect, is instructed to stay and continue the questioning. Meanwhile, the police take some time to gather more details about what happened by speaking with witnesses to place Grant at the location of the crime. It's important to note that Grant's silence during the interrogation is legal and acceptable, but it raises the detective's suspicion even more. This suspicion intensifies when Grant's wife mentions that his only alibi was that she saw him spreading grass seeds at the time when James died. All the evidence seems to point towards Grant, and Detective Chamberlain decides to question him again for the third time. During the murder, when two cars were parked next to each other, the man in the white Chevrolet greeted a person passing by. Right after that, a gunshot was fired. As they drove past, they got a good look at the driver. Unfortunately for Grant, the driver turned out to be Andrew Tillman, a fellow resident of the small town who had known Grant since he was a child. This made it clear that Grant was present at the crime scene when the gun was fired. Both Grant and Chamberlain are certain about what happened to James. However, Grant realizes that his only chance of escaping punishment is to stay silent and hope that the detectives can't find enough evidence against him. Now, the detectives are trying everything they can think of to make Grant talk. They even allowed him to see his wife and daughter, hoping it would trigger some emotional reaction and compel him to speak up. Unfortunately, even this strategy doesn't work. So instead, Detective Cordiero chooses to go back by themselves, acting in a calm and caring way and making a second try to establish trust with Grant.
All right, get ready to think about laying down up on that desk, but it looks awful hard.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll be any more comfortable up there than what you are now.
Cordiero starts by sharing a story about how Grant supported her in a situation 3 years ago, even though he doesn't quite recall it. This story makes Grant think that Cordiero will be understanding and supportive of him because he helped her in the past. However, as expected, when Cordiero began asking him to discuss the case again, he immediately closed off and refused to answer any further questions, remaining completely silent.
Being on patrol and running into you one night. Help me out on a call back then. It was way back in, I guess almost 3 years now. I just don't understand how we got to this point.
Yeah, me neither.
If you're willing to talk, tell
I'm
me.
just ready to go to bed.
I don't blame you. Me too. Me too.
Even though Grant was reminded about his family, he still doesn't budge at all. He understands that the only way he might be released is if he stays silent and hopes that they don't discover anything incriminating.
People are going to have questions. Your family.
Well, I have questions.
Well, exactly.
So
why can't we figure this out together?
After a long and pointless discussion, Grant finally asked for a lawyer, which meant that the detectives could no longer ask him any more questions. The interrogation ended, but the story didn't end there. Between that interrogation and the final court hearing, Grant and his lawyer realized that there was no way he would be set free without facing consequences. There was evidence that a man at the crime scene had seen Grant commit the crime. So, on October 16, 2017, Grant pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. However, during the prosecution, a shocking revelation came to light that turned Grant from a murderer into a heartless monster. When his DNA was being taken, they discovered that it was already in the system under an unknown name for a crime committed almost 20 years ago. In November 1997, a man with a gun confronted a teacher at Frank Tillery Elementary School and forced her into a bathroom stall. He assaulted her and then escaped, making sure not to leave any evidence behind, except for the DNA he left on her clothes. The local police tried their best to identify the perpetrator, but the investigation went cold after 20 months. However, 20 years later, they found that Grant Hardin's DNA was a perfect match. As a result, Grant was sentenced to 14 years for this crime, in addition to the 21 years for the murder of James Appleton. Overall, Grant Hardin was sentenced to 35 years in prison, meaning he will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. As we conclude this gripping tale, we invite you to reflect on the intricate tapestry of life and the choices we make. What would you do if you found yourself in a similar situation? How would you reconcile with the truth and seek redemption? Share your thoughts and let us continue to explore the depths of the human psyche together. Remember, it is in facing our darkest moments that we can truly find the light.